Aipd Railway Track Maintenance 2. Chapter 1, Track Rehabilitation. Remaining paragraphs of this section discuss the two methods of surfacing spot or an out-of-face, the procedure raising track for the distributing or the spreading of the ballast, the work to be done within the surfacing, and the workmen required their supervision and safety procedures to be followed. Out-of-facing surfacing corrects the general poor surface and always done after reballasting. The two operations are often combined, but the surfacing out-of-face lightly little bit more complicated than spotting requires using several pieces of equipment, measuring devices, and general out-of-face surfacing raises the track consistent with lifting of the track jacks, the desired elevation, tamping enough ballast under the ties to support the new elevation. Spot boards, grade stakes, sighting blocks, track levels are used to establish the desired rate. Spot board and the track level are shown in Figure 1.3, and the use of the equipment and other procedures followed in raising the track and described in paragraph 1.5. Alright, A is in play with the wooden stake, the raise with the blue top of the spot board. B in use of the eye and eyepiece for the siding with the block and the amount of the raise of the blue top and the spot board 1 inch. And height. Here shows the track jack. One of the, let me check this out real quick. Okay. Alright, when one of the rails has been raised with the proper height with the spot board, the adjacent rail can be brought with the proper surface value for the track level. The spot board is moved on the next grade of the stake, and the process is repeated. This shows a machine. Together with the track supervisor, the track foreman must estimate the length of the track that can be desired in 1 day with the base for the number of the men in surface gang, with the type of the tool, the type of the ballast, the amount of the raise, the skill of the crew, and the nth reader will be ordinarily have the hand tools maintenance of the way tool set number 4, with it set includes the track shovel, the ballast force, stamper bar, picks, track jacks, spotting board, equipment shown in Figure 1.7. However, this is such for the power tools and pneumatic electrical tampers are shown in Figure 1.8 and 1.9. Your surfacing work will move along much faster. After figuring the length of the track with the V and the surface during the day, the track supervisor and the track foreman can estimate the based on the experience of the amount of ballast required, or they can calculate the amount of multiplying the width of the ballast by the projected raise and then the length and calculating them carefully. Then the dimensions are expressed in the same units. Length of the track in kilometers with the amount of the raise and the centimeters the width of the ballast and the section of meters that would need to convert all the dimensions to one common unit. The example given here with the measurement expressed in meters to arrive at the volume ballast needed length of the track times 7 kilometers, 7 times 1,000, 7,000 meters. Amount of the raise 9 centimeters, 9 times 0.01 is 0.09 meters. Width of the ballast section 4 meters, 7,000 times 0.09 times 4, 2,520 cubic meters. 1.8. Distributing and spreading of the ballast. When the train is raised with much of the bore about the new ballast must be distributed in advance of the raise to support the new elevation of the maintain with the original section. For the smaller raises, it is best to use the existing ballast to support the new track elevation with the restore the original ballast section by placing new ballast. Either the special ballast of the drop bottom hopper cars may be even delivered. The material with the work side of the ballast may be spread with the using the special car with the hopper and the Jordan spreader with the ballast regulator with the special car which is equipped with the pockets for which the material is dumped. The Jordan spreader with the gasoline power of the ballast regulator is special for the amount of the equipment used for the spreading ballast for the Jordan spreader shown in Figure 1.11 and not only spreads the ballast but regulates the depth of the operates compressed air that must be compatible to the locomotive. The spreader is used for the spread of the dirt on the shoulders to plow snow with the gasoline powered ballast regulator shown in Figure 1.12 levels ballast not only between rails but also on the shoulders. No more than the ballast that can be tapped 1 day should be spread on the track. This amount varies according to the number of the workers, the type of the tools inside. Each of the rails should be cleared with the ballast with a couple of inches width of the depth and allow the for the wheel flange of the car to pass over the track before the ballast is tamped. 1.9. Work supervisor. Remember, the track foreman is responsible for supervising the track manually. He has to check if the work to be done, determine the available tools for the equipment, and assign for the man their duties. He must see the work of the progress against the direction of the track, except for the steep grades, but the preferably work uphill. He also makes sure that operating with the track placed for them away from the joint so that the joint bars are not bent. The safety of the workman is a responsibility as well as the safety of the trains is permits over the track on which the work is being done. Likewise, responsibility of the track supervisor for overall quality of the work. The track supervisor checks the progress and the quality of the work on time while it's underway and checks again when it's finished. 110. Track protection. Certain operations must be followed when the working on the mainline track. The Technical Manual 55-200 Railway Operating Rules state and Rule 101 track. A train must be fully protected against any of the conditions, even though they're not covered by the rules, will they interfere with their safe passage at the normal speed when conditions are found that may interfere with the safe passage of the train normal and no protection has been provided. Such action will ensure safety be taken. Rule MC for same source, so its basic significance is often overlooked. Personnel must accept the movement of the train and engine car cars at any time of the expect movement of the train engines and cars at any time of the track, either in either direction. Because track raising interferes with the safe passage of the train, but the product with the necessary on the double track, for example, the eastbound trains, there should be provided over the westbound track to pass over the work area to provide maximum safety for the trains. May interference with the work. The track supervisor must check with the dispatcher, give them and give you the track of the required with the route of the track of trains around you, but then the foreman must station flag one to protect against any of the train because of the misunderstanding might approach the track on which the work is in progress. Often the solution is not simple. The method just described cannot be used only on single or multiple tracks wherein the traffic is heavy and all the traffic is required to take care of the large number of the trains. Then the job must be done in such a way that the track maintenance men cannot only immediately make track safe for an approaching train to pass the repair site, but also move out of the danger themselves while it passes. When work trackman is under service, the watchman whistles and signs are stationed in the direction expected by the train to give advance warning. The foreman must also refer his high timetable frequently to prepare the scheduled trains. It must also be on alert for the unscheduled one to keep the track safe for the train moving while the track is being raised on a smooth surface. The runoff of the gradual change of the very rate for the lower elevation must be provided. 111. Track is proper the surface of the cross level of the imaginary plane rests and even on the rails. If the plane falls rests evenly with the track and proper surface, it can cause the rough ride with the proper surface of the cross level of the track. The restored raising low areas to match the high ones. Both spot and out of face surfacing are used in raising rail. Spot surface of the raised isolated low and out face with the raising. The entire track to the new uniform height, especially with after rebalancing. Out-of-phase surfacing requires using spot boards, grids, stakes, siding, blocks the track level. The track is lifted with the tracks of the elevation. Desired ballast is tammed beneath the tabs to support the new elevation plan. For surfacing of the amount of the ballast needed with the pace on the surfacing can be accomplished in one day. The ballast is brought to the work with the side of the ballast and drop bottom hopper cars and then spread by either the car and the rail mounted spreader. Both the surfacing effort of the supervisor with the track foreman who is responsible for the quality of the work and the safety of the workmen and the safety of all the trains operating over the track being repaired. 112. General. The next phase of the track rehabilitation relaying rail with like surfacing rail may be replaced with either the spot out-of-face method. Spot replacement usually made by hand without the face replacements are involved. They usually require the use of the machinery. Paragraph 113 explains the spot method. Paragraphs 114 through 116 explain the out-of-face method. 113. Spot replacements are made with the individual rail separate location where they have the flaw of the replacement. As the rules are made by hand with the joint bars are bolted and removed with the spikes are pulled with the new rail set in place on the old. New bolts, joint bars, spikes in this installed the old ones not usable crowbars, track wrenches, spike pullers, rail tongues, adversers, tight spike hammers such as those shown in figure 17 are used while the work is underway with the 101 given the paragraph 110 is in effect with the flagman must protect against it, all trains. 114. Out-of-face replacement. Out-of-face replacement is the method of the new renew long stretch of the rail with the most common and more involved spot replacement. Although the actual replacement takes a little time, a great deal of the planning must be done before the work is started on both military and civilian lines. Rail renewals are reprogrammed in advance, but the reason for the renewal may be battered and excessive headwear over the change of the section may be necessary with the change of the traffic. Out-of-face rail replacement is discussed in the next two paragraphs. First of the procedure for the relay, and then the duty for the track maintenance once the relay is finished. Alright, dismantling setting of the old rail with the first group of the men was removed the rail anchor bolts and joint bars. The following, then these men will work with the oscillating torches burned with any of the bolts which cannot be loosened with the branches. Well, working closely behind using the track forks and lining bars. Two men roll old rail clear of the tracks if the push of the inside of the track relaying the crane left and removing it from the track. Spikes over the one rail. First step of the dismantling setting of the old rail. If the new accessories are to be used when the power track wrenches such as those shown in figure 113, spikes are pulled with or hand by those are to remove the bolts and spikes. If not, such hand tools are such track wrenches. Claw bars shown in figure 117 are used after the joint bars are removed with the 8 to 10 pound sledge hammers. Here's a picture, another picture, another picture, another picture, another picture, another picture. Preparing the tie. The first step of the preparing the tie is the one with the man to remove the tie place RT670 with the figure 3738. If they are to be replaced with the Nexus 4 with a group of the four men to live with the level of the crib of the bell, so that below the top of the ties that they do with the hand rakes and the shovel of the bells and the forks of the sweep with the top of the ties with the brooms. Following this, the three-man set with the drive of the tie plug with the RT670 with the figure 313 and the old spike holes and the tampering bars, spike hammers and light with the sledgehammers and tools as they use it as the two men using sledge punch with the drive of the stub of the broken off of the spike with the men are also followed by the 5 with equipment with the power adzizing machine to refinish the adzizing with the bearing of the soft the surface of the tie of the bare wood left of explode with the adzizing. The creases tidy with the 3 men equipped with the brush of the bucket with the drop of the drum of creostate. Last operation preparing the tie for the setting with the new tie placed by 2 men. C, the setting of the fastening of the new rail with a small reel mounted with crane, light enough to move over the unspike of the rails, pick up the one of the new rails already. The distributed lowers and assemble the man with the guided into the tie onto the tie place. The one worker places the shims, proper thickness between the end of the joining rail to provide with expansion. And after that, the rail ended with the slush with the brush of the prevention, and 6 men foul with the joint bar clamp with the installing the bars and setting with the bolts of the rails, then gauge with the track gauge lightly spiked in the place and large gang with the set with the drive spike foul with the using the pneumatic gasoline power spike hammer such as the one shown in figure 114. Next, the joint bars are tightened with the required pressure with the power of the track wrench with the also illustrated in figure 113. Last step of the phasing of the work consisting of the fastening with the rail anchors applying the single bond wire the RT670 for paragraph 332 with the finishing of the relay switch with the utility gang 6 to 12 men complete with the relay with the taking the care of the detail of the turnout insulation provided with a temporary closure before the train arrives at the end of the work of the day with the tamped old joints location. Clean up with the train valve with the switch and the utility gang with the pack up the old rail fastenings and leaving all of the roadway clean and free of obstructions. New ties are installed with the necessary with the track with the accurately line and gave with the section 3 valve with the relay rail relay with the job of the taking care of the regular track route with the just of the wear with the before the figure 119 the gasoline powered rail saw relay. In addition with the crew collect with the store of the old rail must be properly in fair condition. Usable sections prepared with the relay of in the yard siding for the branch line with the rails with battered ends are cropped with the rail saw. The shown figure 13 figure 119 and new bolt holes needed to be drilled with the power drill. The figure 120 illustrates some of the rails are to be relayed with the Turner branch where they arrive with a substituting 150-pound railway section for the 80 pounds AS section and rail now with the mining branch. 117 rails are replaced with either spot or the outer surface map of the individual rails are scattered. Location for the final of the half the well spotted replacements are made with the usually by hand auto-pace replacement with the renewing the long stretch of the rail normally requires more men and specialized machinery because of the wire work is more individual must be carefully planned with the work is first done on the one rail then the time procedure is repeated on the other one. 118 general. The final phase of the track rehabilitation of the tie renewal with looking like surfacing of the rail rail renewal with the tie replacement that must be done single use spot with the out of pace to cover the life of the tie with the vary with the great lead with the good with the poor with the timbers are usually found intermingled within this out of pace replacement itself with the done with the instant with the wear with must be applied with the will be done with the rundown lines will be built upon to have heavy increase of the traffic with both ties or the rails to be renewed generally better with the new rail first. However, the ties should be not replaced during the re-railing operation left they are completely rotted. If the new ties have placed first, the old rail would have been spiked to them. Then before the spiking of the new rail, the new tie of the old spiking holes would have to be filled with the wooden tie plugs and the spikes driven into the plugged holes. By installing the new ties after the spikes are driven into the solid wood of the tie rather than being in plugged holes. Paragraph 119 through 125 explain the tie renewal lining of the gauging with the track. Always follow out of face rail replacement, although both line gauge must be checked frequently to allow the trains to pass safely. In paragraphs 126 and 27 explain lining of the gauging. 119 the procedure for the replacing ties to begin with the track foreman's periodic inspection with the ties valve that comes with actually the replacement of the bad ties, good ones. But sometimes the traffic must be restricted with the time renewal procedure is underway. Spike with the new ties, disposing the old ones and lining with the new ties, and the older are the final steps in the process. 120. The track foreman makes periodic inspection to find out whether the ties in need with the be replaced. Puts on the spot with a white lead paint on the web of the rail above the tie with it be renewed with the tracker. The supervisor spot check with the selection before they are removed to be sure that there is no discarding with the good ties. If not always possible, to determine the serviceability of the ties while in the track. Thereby, they should be inspected again after the removal of the before all the doubtful ties with the track supervisor make sure that all the bad ones have been removed, but by the checking of the carefully that he may find some of them still usable. 121. Raised placement. After the bad ties have been marked with the new ones distributed along with the track, the section gang removed the spike with the claw bars, loosening the ballast, raising the track slightly with the old ties, then are pulled out of the tie with the tongue with the claw bars with the tie tongue with the illustrating figure 17. The new ties are slid into place from the re-spikes and ballast and tamped. 122. Removing the track from the out of service out of the work with the surface with the removal of one of the more ties makes it necessary to restrict the traffic. The track must be thoroughly as out of surface the train is allowed to proceed only with a great reduced speed. With any one of the following conditions exists: 2 or more adjoining ties are removed into the extremely hot weather, and the tie unspiked removed and is not flanking on the bottom of the side of it by at least 4 good fully spiked tie with the ballast tamped, and 3 with the ballast is untamped. The following number of the adjoining ties for each side of the tie are removed or not fully spiked in good condition: 2 ties on the tangent track, 3 ties on the curves up to 5 degrees, and 4 ties on the curves up to over 5 degrees. 123. Lining of the ties. Although exact length of the ties is unspecified, orderly with length of the frequently vary slightly with the placement of the track. The one tied end is lined up flush with the next one present with the uniform appearance for the placement with the ties are aligned with those already in place. For the tie end should be in uniform dependent for the palm of the number of the main for the tracks on single line and tie ends for the line rail with is on the east side with the within the track runs north and south. On the north side with the track runs east and the west on double track lines ends for the outside of the track. When there are 3 or more tracks aligned with the ends of the outside with the track line ends with the line rail side on the inside of the track. 124. Disposing of the old ties. Old ties may be used for the shoring of the crippling material for the building of the retaining of the wall. They often are used for the shore of the track, while the French draining of the inner orders are constructed. The French drains are discussed in more detail in the Protection Manual 670, paragraph 215C. If the old ties cannot be used for these purposes, they have been saved with the firewood or burned at the removal site. 125. Spiking tie. If the new ties are installed, they must be properly spiked with a usually tangent track with the spike with the 4 spikes per tie with it is in the other side of each of the rail with the pattern shown figure 121. The 2 spikes must be in the driven no closer than 2 inches from either the face of the tie, but the spikes are used on the curves 2 inside each of the rail and 1 on the outside. Spikes must be driven vertically and square. The next step of the outer-facing surface of the rail renewal with a line with the track that may be aligned at the times other necessary to provide safer and smoother passage of the train. Proper line with the tangent track is perfectly straight, and then is the rails run parallel to the center line with the track aligned with the discussion paragraph 1.4 with the reference track with the text 670A with the sample of the correct proper alignment with the track. Tangent track to establish the proper alignment of one of the 2 of the rails inside with the imaginary center line of the rail selected with the center is called the line rail. This paragraph 123 explained with the rail track line with the figure 122 can be used to line with the track. However, the experience of the track foreman can be making a fair adjustment to the tangent alignment by eye, but high-speed track must be aligned by using the transit lining bars of the rail mounted with the liner. Transit. The accurate alignment and even the high-speed track can be obtained by only using the transit telescope with the crosshairs on the objective line for the instrument, similar to the one with the used to be with the engine building contact with the correct line with the construction. Each of the undertake the telescope tube with the mounted with the bearings, so they can be moved either vertically or horizontal. With the bearings may be locked over the line sight with the fixed when the instrumental set over the line rail with a vertically crosshair determines with the proper line with the rail. Lining bars of the line rail is moved with the proper position, but the men using the line with the bar such with the one with shown figure 1.7 to move the throw of the entire track structure. The rail opposite of the line rail is brought into the alignment of the gauging with the line rail, throwing the track and discussed more than thoroughly in the section 5 of the chapter 3 illustrating figure 3.9. 127. The track foreman check with the gauge with the track frequently with the amount of the permissible deviation of the 2 grade to verify that depending on the type of the track and the speed of the train is gauged 1/8 of an inch with the less of the less inch to left of the standard 56.5 inch high speed tangent track with the wide gauge of the up to 57.5 inch, while safe but not desirable with the cut of the rough riding with contributed to the port line with the surface of the gauge established for the checked and track gauge with the shown figure 123. The gauge is corrected, respiking lower inside rail, never the moving of the line rail, never by bending previous driven spikes. 128. Summary. Like surfacing relaying of the rail on the tie, renewal is done with the spikes without of the base mass with the spot replacement of the first. A single replacement outspace applied with a large number of replacements required with the rundown line must recondition accommodate with a heavy day increase with the traffic. The ties inspected before they are removed, and the bad ones marked with the spot check is made before they are removed, and ensure that the usual ties are not being discarded. Ties should be inspected again with the removal because it is always possible to determine their serviceability while they are in the track. The new ties are distributed along the track. Old ties are removed and the new ones slid into place with the spike with the ballast tamp of the track. It is aligned with the this gauge and checked correctly if necessary. Hey, components. Essentially, the turnout is a combination of the 5 components: the switch and the frog with a pair with the guardrails closure for the switch side of the switch with the controlling mechanism that determines the path of the moving engine for the cars take with the frog provided with the mean with the wheel flanges across the obstruction of the rail with the alternate path of the guardrail set. The opposite with the frog point hold the flange of the wheels away from it and to prevent the bearing taking off the wrong route with the closure of the rails connect with the switch and the frog with the switch ties over the predetermined length of each of the gauges. The frog number extended under both of the tracks as well to be on the frog. The frog number is discussed in All right, show up the note with the frog is in the broken line. The guardrail to the left and to the right of that. Then the main and main or parent rail, the straight stock rail. Your bent enclosure rail, your bent and stock rail, straight enclosure rail. Turnout track, switching throwing mechanism, switching points. 2-3. What a turnout is. What is turnout? Turnout is would have been possible that the train would leave with the track to enter with another without them. The yard sign with the passing of the track would be impossible. Most operating employees refer to the turnouts as switches, but technically a switch is only one part of the turnout. The two distinguish between the two terms in the next. The term of the switch is used to refer to the pair of the movable rails and the necessary of the connection that are used to divert train in another track. Classification: turnouts may be classified according to their direction. Sharpness of the direction of the turnout is determined by the viewing of the into the main of the track of the face with the switch point that is movable with the rail of the brew on to the left of the turnout to the left-handed. If to the right, then right-handed. The sharpness of the turnout is determined by the actual frog angle with this is angle with the form of the rails extend with the heel of the actual point over the frog with the length of the switch rails. Not only is from the dog the frog designated by the angle, but more commonly by its number. The large number of the frog, the less for the sharp angle with the turnout. The number of the approximately same with the length of the heel given in the standard the table turnout data figure. For example, the heel of the number 8 frog is 7 foot 11 inches long, and then for the number 20 frog it is 19 feet and 10 inches long. Common frog is number 8, 10, 15, 20. Standard military one is number 8. Sub switches, one common of the United States are seldom used here or more used here anymore, but the most of the days have outlawed them to the main lines. However, they are usually found in some overseas areas. More information over these usually given in section 5 of this. For the simple economic construction operations, sub switches are difficult to maintain, but quite safe for the made derailments may be having caused by them to depend upon the perfect alignment with the rails with the proper operation. The great advantage for the consist with the economy and the ability to light and slow traffic. Unlike subtype, the split switch is fastened with the cross eyes usually referred to the switch type or the timber for their length of recording of their location in relation to the various parts of the switch. Now, figure 2-3 with the illustrative layout of the split with the switch turnout. Now, note that the ties graduate length of the 8.5 feet for just beyond the switch point, 15.5 feet beyond the heel of the frog. Split switch with like the sub one with the two movable rail with the however the split switch with the one main line with the one turnout rail move with the figure 2-4 with the 2-5 with the movable rails are marked with X. The arrow with each of the figure point out with the part of the switch stand mechanism. Figure 2-4 with the view with the split switch closed on the main line movement. The figure 5 shows is thrown on the turnout movement. The movable rails is happened with 1/4 of an inch with the wide at the top. The sketch is inserted with the left of the air. Left are in view for the left and right hand movable rails with the shaded areas as they appear beside the accompanying stock rails as the view from the switch points. Or you have your left-handed and your right-handed rail stock. Frog is cheap with the turnout where the two rails intersect with the provided flangeway channel with the wheel flange with the move of the one rail to the other and also provide nearly as possible continuous bearing for the wheels. Each part of the frog has the name of the study with the figure 2-6 of the shown with the read of the next few sentences so that they may identify the portion over the toe with the opening between the wing of the rail to the end of the frog near the switch point with the points of the lead rail that are attached with the wing rails at the toe. The rotors of an air spark with usually 1/3 of 1 and 7/8 of an inch wide with the theoretical point with the located where the gauge line with the stock of the switch rail would be intersect with it would extend past the actual point where the points were planned to be theoretical. Point with the impact with the car's wheels would be soon better. Break it for the region of the point is rounded off to approximately 1/2 of the inch of the call into 1/2 of the inch of the actual point. Distance between the 2 points and equal the inch of the 1/2 of the frog number. For example, on the number 4-8 frog with the points with the 4 inches apart with the end of the frog away from the switch point is called the heel. All right. Rigid frog with the divided with the 3 group of the bolted roof of the hard time with the magnesium insert with the magnesium steel. All three of these illustrated in figure 2-9 with the rigid with the install with the track of the show in figure 2-10. Bolted rigid type of the manufacturer's standard rail section and cutout required with the wall together with the standard with the military style with the issue with the human with the hard center frog with it has a magnesium cap with the points attached with the standard rail with the section. Since the point gets for the greatest wear with it may be extremely hard steel with the replaceable with the magnesium steel with the type of the hard steel with the cost of casting one piece with the signal magnesium steel with the hard center of the frog with the have the greatest resistance and wear. They are preferably with a bolted rigid type, especially with the mainline track in the busy yards and the latter. The spring frog will provide with a smooth and interpreted with the path of the turnout in one direction of the flange with the wheel with the passing over the alternate path of the horse with the wing rail with the frog. The open again for the spring tension after the train has passed with the turnout outside. Turn outside with the spring force with the wing back rail and back again for the running of the rail with the maintaining the original route with the main line movement. The figure 2-7 show for the operation of the type of the frog. The only justification location of the spring frog is in the turnouts where the traffic is considerably heavier in one direction than in the other. Therefore, it would not be desirable to delay the movement through little use of the route with the main track spring. But the frog is pictured in figure 2-8 with the which with the upper air points for the wing rail and lower to the spring mechanism. Alright, you have the toe of the frog, the wing rail with the throttle of the throat block, the actual point of the frog, the filler, and the heel block with the heel of the frog. The heel length goes from the actual point of the frog to the heel of the frog, and the heel length towards switch points. There's the toe of the frog, wing rail, throat, and the block throat. Spring rails, frog open with the wing flank and join with the turnout movement, shove the wheel on the flange, the bottom shove of the spring hold of the wheel, wing rail against the running of the rail, the continuous path of the mainline movement, the broken path of the turnout movement, the stop of the preventing of the wing rail opening too far with the wing rail, and the spring for the normal position provided with the continuous support of the mainline rail. You have the voltage ridge of the heart center of the or the magnesium insert of the flange way below the insert of the rail of the magnesium steel. 2-6, the path of the frog. The path of the frog if the train wheel is taken to the file with easily to refer to 211 and after the read of the remainder of the paragraph of the locomotive of the well. We're moving the left and the right with the word diverted to the left of the wheels moving over the left-hand rail with a roll on just as if it were ordinary truck. The wheels moving over the right-handed rail will pass over the frog with the flange of the widow file with the path of C and D will tread. Well, the treads both may move along with the path A and B of the note that the wheels are unsupported as they pass the junction while they're dotted the line of EF and cross the dotted line of CD with the throat of the frog with the gap necessary for the movement of the train not being diverted by the switch because of the permits for the flange with the left hand with the wing wheels across the rail A, B, F to proceed with the path of the GH with any of the passing through the turnout regardless of the direction with the heads of the wheels on one on the other side pass through the frog where wheels possessing over the frog with the left and the right deliver the blows to the point of the frog at X. Alright, show the secondary track, the main track, the trailing point of movement of the main switch, and the facing point of the movement, the main switch, and the frog. The A, C, B, D, and the G, and the F, toe spread, theoretical point of the frog, throat, actual point of the frog, heel length, heel spread. 3 types of rails are to be found with the turnout. They are the guard closure and the stock rail. The guard rails are located opposite of the frog of the main line of the turnout. They are the force of the wheel, the flange clove, the running with the rail for the opposite flange, for the down directly for the flow, for the on the frog with the point of the pass, down with the wrong side of the point, the U for the guard rails, and turnouts to prevent excessive frog wear to produce the rail hazardment. Straight edge and curved closed rail leads with the joint with switch rail to the frog with the later with the jointed together the near point with the switch of the shoulder of the road is moved as a unit. Number depends on the length of the switch rail with the rod closest to the point with the extend with under the stock rails through the switch throwing mechanism as shown with the dotted line. 2 of the roof straight in the stock rails are 2 of the rails and with against with the switch point with the bear with the straight with the stock rail may also be called with the B through the rail through the running rail with the curve of the bent stock rail that is at the theoretical point of the switch rather than at the actual one to protect with the switch points from being battered. The turnouts are designed with the high-speed traffic often with the indentation with the cutting of the stock rail to the further protect with the switch points to help preventing of the DRAM of the indentation of this 10 to 12 inches of the ground along with the skate side over the head of the rail with the shape of the area of the sketch points of the general upper area of the group approximately 1/4 in each deep at the beginning with the opposite with the switch point for the groove of the tapers to nothing at the other end. The switch point is rest with the switch slide with the plates with the plane with the provides smooth surface from which with the bottom of the points can slide with the plates to extend with the understock of the rail and graduated in thickness so that the top of the point is kept slightly above the top of the stock rail. Usually plate that has fixed the adjustable rail with the braces support with the stock rails which are subjected to the heavy lateral force of the curve of the train passing through the turnout long narrow tie lights, so-called heel plates are used for the fasten both of the main line and the turnout rails and the switch ties. Alright, show for the switch stands A and B with the frog and the guardrails at C. So as you until the turnout mainline rails have diverged far enough to permit the use of the separate tab plate. Figure 210 switch tie. The figure of the 14 arrangement of location of switch ties. Entire turnout is supported with a switch of the tie with located in the number of the figure 214 over the point A. The 2 toe ties supporting with the switch points also supported with the switch throwing mechanism. They are referred to the head block timbers and are 15 feet long with the sliding ties with the actual switch ties will gradually become longer and toward the half-rung edge of the turnout is shown figure 214 between points B and C with the number 8 turnout, for example, the tie length will vary from 8.5 feet just beyond with the switch points to the 15.5 feet beyond the heel of the frog. What is the mechanism for the switch of the throwing mechanism? Because this is essentially with the switch hand with the throw level of the connection rod. The switch hand is located with the 215 feet head the lock timber at the A and the figure 214 opposite with the switch point with the usually right side of the track with respect to the normal direction of the traffic. The center of the stand is approximately 6 feet and 6 inches of the center of the line of the track with a mechanically may be operated manually electrically with a hand thrown switch of the throne with the operator. The operator's small station with the yard switchman train crew with the electrically powered switch without throne with the remote controlled by the operator's station of the tower's interlocking plants. These switch rods run to the movable rail with the turnout and enable the operator to throw them. The control box automatically activates the down of the track signal with the throw lever that is moved to show that the switch is either normal or reverse to prevent the throw of the lever being thrown accidentally by an unauthorized person. Lock portion with the which is seen at 5 and run through either of the lights as shown in 6 for the mainline. Switch stands are always equipped with the lights and they are mounted above the stand to indicate the color direction of the track through which the switch line is lined. Green indicates that the movement is set for the main track, the red for the turnout, and what B, which switch does as Alright, 212, the turnout summary. Turnouts with it may be possible the train will leave one of the track and enter another. The turnout is a combination of the 5 components of the switch frog with the guardrails, closure rails, and switch ties. The turnout is either left or the right hand, and the sharpness of the turnout is determined with the action acuteness of the frogging with the two design with the switch with the sub-split with the economical with the adaptable light with the slow traffic with the sub with the quiet unsafe with the difficult to maintain with the rails or connect with the rides of both the main line with the rails move with the split and point with the switch with the more common with the sub-switch hands and the safe with the more with the satisfactory split switch. Rails are fast and the cross tie of the split switch one with them with the mail with the on-one turnout rail with the move. A frog is installed with the intersection with the running of the rail to provide a channel with the wheel flange with the move of the one rail to the other to provide the continuous bearing with the front of the tread with the wheel. A frog has a toe with a throw with a heel and the both actual and theoretical point, all of the which with the name of the part with both the spring of the rigid frog with the manufacturer of the rigid frog with the 3 type of the voltage rigid with the military stand with the hard time with the magnesium steel regardless of the direction train going through a turnout has of the wheels with the one side of the other pass with through the frog facing on the trailing points moving to describe the direction of the train travel through the turnout. The 2 guardrails are installed with the opposite frog, one on the mainline side with the other on the turnout with the closure with the lead rail to connect with the switch for the frog. These turn and join by switch rods so that the switch rails can be moved as a unit. The 2 stock rails, one bent, other straight, the other ones that switch with the bends meet against the bent stock rails curved at a theoretical point with the switch to protect the switch. Switch slide with the plate for the place on with the stock of the rails active with the tie place provided with the smooth the surface of the point to move on with the turnout and support with switch sides varying with length with the 8.5 to 15 feet and a half. Switch throwing mechanism. The switch stand enabled to be operated with either by hand or by remote control to move the switch from either the main line with the turnout movement of the plane panels showing the direction of the track with which the switch is lined with the green and normal, the red for reverse, and the switch rod connects the movable rail to enable them from dethrowing the latch of the lock with the help to prevent the switch from being thrown with the accidental unauthorized personnel. Turnouts are used to divert the traffic with the main traffic with the branch inside with the crossover ladder with the switch leading with the location for the turnout, effect with the space limitation, speed, the requirements, volume of the traffic, distribution of the traffic, the direction of the traffic, type of installation, whether both the freight and passenger equipment is to be operated over them with the track supervisor plan to brief for the foreman and men of these points for the turnouts and yards crossover the sidings and permissible speeds throughout the turnouts. In most yards, the turnouts are usually sharp with the switch or manually operated with the restricted space for the yards required with the sharp turn with the low speeds limits of the found in figure 216 illustrate. The typical yard turnout to control the track you're routing with the terminals often have the interlocking plants require them common operating point of the remote control switches interlocking system in which the turnout signals are connected with the control with the conflicting and incorrect routes cannot be set up by the tower operator. The yard turnouts and the turnouts deciding on running tracks have the same characteristics. A crossover multiple track main line with the often necessary to provide with the routes with the terrain may be diverted within one parallel track to another passing the reaching station for the platforms getting off the main line 2 turns for the track with the track between them collectively the crossover provided the means of the moving the train from one track to the other. Figure 217 depicts the typical crossover. Sharp turnouts must not be used with the crossover using less of the mainline speed can be restricted. The turnouts should be, if the possible, be with the same side of it to avoid with the compromised joints. The turnouts should be the same in the rail section as the track of the joint there whenever the possible with the crossover generally remote controlled must be group of them and it is interlocked. Single track sidings with the 2 allowing the path for the train with the running in the opposite of the direction moving the track in the different speed with the same of the direction. The single track line of sidings are used with the turnouts or may be sharp with the need not to be remotely controlled since one of the trains must ordinarily stop before entering or leaving the siding. Plans and data for installation of the turnout must be worked out by the engineer or skilled turnout technician must be knowledgeable and trigonometry is needed. The turnout position has been established with the point of the frog. The point of the switch has been located with the width of the other steps in the turnout with the con for the turnouts for the also installed during the new construction with the turning out of face for the renewal of the track when existing ones are no longer satisfactory because of the increased speed requirements for the train with the locomotive design for the turnouts may be leave with the one tangent trunk with the track construction. They also have given the remainder of the paragraph illustrated in paragraph parts B and F of the figure 218. They also have satisfactory method of turnout insulation only is outlined here. Another angle that is in the curve that may leave with the curve is in the tangent of the curve because of the increase where the turnout should not be ordinarily to be located on the curve. The first step of the installing of the turnout is to be located with the actual point of the frog or PF that's shown in figure 218A with the set of the stake with the mark of the position from the point of the frog. You can locate the other points of the turnout from which the first one which the establish the point of the switch. Again, with refer to figure 218A, we decide on the location of this. You refer to the turnout plan, such as one of the given in figure 22. Turnout position has been established for the turn of the point out for the point of the switch have been located with the other steps in the turnout construction that are given with the remainder of the paragraph and illustrated in paragraph in parts B, F, and in figure 218. All these are simple satisfactory methods of the turnout installation. Only outline is one is outlined here. Think of the rug on the straight closure rail with the accompanying with the switch rail with the assembly on the tab between the stock rail of the station with the final position of the assembly of the point gauge with the stock rail with the point of the frog coinciding with the stake position of the point of the frog spikes in play with the point of the switch spikes contemporarily with the covered enclosure with the turnout point of the switch and then spiked in play with the figure 218E show with the bent stock rail can be gauged from the turnout with the point of the switch with the curve of the closure rail with the spiked in its final location. The two guard rails are assembled and spiked opposite from the frog adjacent to the running of the rail to the next. The spikes are removed through the point of the switch and then moved in one position with the 4 3/4 inch from the 4 3/4 of an inch for the bearing surface of the curved stock of the rail joint opposite point with the switch rod with the switching throwing the mechanism installed with the turnout is now ready for use for the completed turnout is shown figure 218F. Turnout maintenance like any other really would involve the three things: inspection, repair, and prevention. The first for the foremost of the step in the turnout maintenance for the frequent inspection with the stock with rails, the switch point with the guarded rail with the frog must come under the closest scrutiny with the single sign is excessive wear with all the bolts and spikes with the check of the tightness of the ties and the exam of the single signs of the pumping the gauge and serve the check of the frequency. After inspection with the faults discovered that must be studied to find out their cause of the prevention with the personal experience of the valuable in this work with the remaining of the paragraph of the section with examples show the approach of the prevention of the typical problems of the switch frog and switch point with the switch ties. If one of the train passes with the drum of the turnout with the switch tie to the point of the pumping with a certain but as low with the switch points are to blame with the rigidity with the stock rails maintained with the normal elevation above the tie with the remedy with the tamp the tie with the correct with any of the worker water pocket the RT 670 bomb part 210 paragraph 210 if the switch points is severely chipped they have to been replaced with the least rapid repair with the water point with the replace with the usually accompanying the stock rails. Also inspection repair prevention are the key word of the turnout made for the inspection with the turnouts frequently excessive wear of the loose bolts and the spike of the pumping of the tie of the proper gauge and surface of the study with the faults with the found to determine the cover of the prevention among the faults that may be found with the chipped frog points and the switch of the point bearing improperly against the stock rail low switch point ties and pumping ties. Switch without the frog with the frogs without the switch with the stock rail so they go nowhere. All of those where the more the switch with this will constitute more of the subject matter of section 5. This section shows how the non-familiar with the switch frog with the have been adapted with the special purpose of the tells about with the stub switch with the introduce the spring switch with the derails crossing the slip switch with the also section discuss gantlet tracks and special type of the track construction track bumpers that may be installed on spurs and sidings. Although the sub switch is practically obsolete in this comes from the paragraph 24A explained for the interest of the military supervised because it must be found in many over the speed of the area, but the disadvantage of the area of the first of the high temperature may cause sufficient of the rail expansion to bind movable rail with the one position preventing with the switch from being through the alternate with the path of the selection slide at the maladjustment of the switch rail can result with the derailment without because of the urgently need with the rail transportation with the scarcity with the supply parts for the three-door operation. The switch rail may be used as some of the poor design, although the necessary to construct with the switch for the turnout switch with the suitable frog with the switch itself that can be made over the standard rail. A spring switch is actually with the split swatch incorporated with the throwing of the mechanism that permitted the train to make with the trailing movement and no matter with the width for the direction switch of the line with it is done with the having the switch points for the held necessary normal position except for the main line with the spring mounted within the cylinders attached with the switch rod with the assembly with the wheel flange for the train passing on to the main track of the turnout side with the forcing the switch point over the against with the spring tension without the damaging of the switch stand operating mechanism mechanism. After the train has passed the spring, return to the switch point to the normal position. Oil cylinders and buffer plates assembly prevent the switch from returning to the normal position too quickly without the build would be damaging for the entire mechanism. The switch is usually constructed so that they can be also manually thrown forward face pointing over the traffic into the enter of the turnout side of the inset for the turnout. Alright, this shows a derail boot, mirror split face spring. Gauntlet tracks have two frogs, but no switch tracks. Movable point frogs. Typically used might be to run with a double track line over the bridge and air with the two track, but the same thing would be done with the two turnouts, but the gauntlet track with arrangement does not require the switch point with no setting with the turnout necessary. However, the single projection with the required setting for the train with the running of the opposing direction cannot pass each other on the gauntlet track. Track bumpers are installed at the end of the dead end of the track to prevent equipment from being derailed to protect the surrounding structure of the accessory type of location for the industrial spurs and blind sidings. Alright, 3-3, curves their lining. So we're going to cut this tape for another case. Alright, we are on 102 of 148. Alright, we're going to continue reading. Alright, 3-3. The curves of the line with the curves may be classified as simple with the circular with the compound reverse study with the figure 3-1 with the read with the definition file with the simple of the circular curve that is 1 with the uniform radius of the compound with the reverse curve with the merely combination with the simple one with the compound curve with the two simple curve with the different radii both of the bending of the same direction. Reverse curve is made with the two curves with the going in the opposite direction, one of the following on the other with the letter S. For the example, the reverse curve requiring the tangents between them and the leaf of the length of the locomotive, but the tangent with the least of the 300 feet makes the construction and maintenance of this as well with the train with the move the easier with the rail on the outside with the railway curve that is arbitrarily defined as line rail with the paragraph 125 to 126 with the explain with the rail that must be first but be correctly aligned with the inner one with the line with the by the gauging it in the outer rail. Alright, this shows the simple with the tangent curve and then the tangent center with the compound curve with the tangent curve A and then tangent curve B with the tangent and then your reverse curve with the tangent with the radius and center A with the radius and center B with the tangent. Alright, 4,000 tons of the track of the round with the curve of the grade throughout the length of the curve of the bounce speed decrease of the bound with the reducing the problem of the engineering beyond the scope of the tech with the curve located with the grade that had been reduced in this way that they're being said to be compensated. Sharpness of the curve depends directly on the length of the radius, long radii, result of the curvature of the shore of the radii, the shape, sharp of the curve, compared with the sharpness of the curve with accompanying with the sketch for each of the three has the same number of the degrees that is each of the represent with the same of the portion of the entire circle. However, the curve with the shore with the broken line radii makes the shorter than the other two. At the same time, the other curve with the dotted dash radii with the sharper than the one with the long and solid line radii. All right, you have the 90-degree radius subtending the chord length of the 100 feet. The subtending chord length of the 100 feet is a 20-degree radius A, B, from A to A, and the 90-degree curve, 20-degree curve. 3-4. Effective of the curvature on the equipment, the sharpness of the curve of the extreme, with the important locomotive with the rolling shock mount speed designed to operate within those over the which they are over the travel. For example, the locomotive with the long bridge wheel, but if they're unable to negotiate the sharp of the curve without speeding with the track, for the curvature, have the additional resistance for the track. It's normal resistance for the movement that naturally produced for the normal of the tonnage capacity of the locomotive just for the grade, but the curvature over the curve of the grade, but the resistance further increase for the locomotive the maximum capability hauling with about 4,000 tons of the train up to 1.2% grade. It will sell if the resistance of the sharp of the curve is superimposed on the grade, but to enable this for the type of locomotive to haul. The sharpness of the curve depends directly on the length of the radius. The long radii should result with the line curvature, short of the radii, and the sharp of the comparable the sharpness for the curve of the accompanying the sketch. Each of the three hit same number of degrees for each of the represent with the same with the portion for the entire circle. However, the curve of the short with the broken line radii with the making sharper than the other two. At the same time, the curve of the dotted dash radii is sharper than the one with the long and solid long line radii. For example, if the train with the operator around the 2-degree curve with the 55 miles per hour, the equilibrium super elevation would be calculated as follows. The equilibrium is 0.006 times the diameter times V2, or 4 inches. Super elevation counteract lateral thrust with the central figure exerted with the locomotive the rolling stuff with the amount of the super elevation depends on the kind of the curve of the sharpness of the curve of the gauge of the track of the speed of the train of the military railroad And the maximum amount of super elevation recommended for any of these curves is 4 inches. The military engineer specified that the 4 inches of super elevation must be maximum be used. A spiral all over the curve differs for the circular with the simple with the curve for the curvature as well with the radius with the spiral vary throughout the length with the straight with the opening end with the spiral with the curvature becomes the sharper toward the closeout end. You have your spiral circular curve and your tangent spiral curve spiral segments tangent spiral curve SS is circular part of the curve being spiral ends, CS of the circular part of the curve ends being the spiral beginnings, TF the tangent end of the spiral beginning with the SC with the spiral ends of the tangent begins. Spirals are U with the E with the train with the ninja out with the curve through the correctly called with the easement with the curve with the brief with the house spiral with the U with the more with the detail with the knee with the Israeli with the following explanation start with the diagrams spiral curve with the figure 3 with the depending on the tangent serve. Tangent S, TS for the lower left, with the prepare with the letter for the tangents of the spiral. Identify they also prepare with the straight track with the joint. The spiral at the point where the both of the tangent TS and the spiral will continue with the greater, getting sharper until the sharper the curve of the SC. From this point, the track file with the circular curve to play with another spiral begins. A circular curve to S, spiral curve from which the point becomes the sharper to the straight curve to tangent. Alright, section 4, string line of the general. The requirements for the world maintained with the curve of the track with the same with the straight curve with the main job with the more difficult to perform. The one of the curves, some of the fault of the curve of the track may be corrected more with the frequently of the same with the tangent for inch for the real, whereas faster on the curve of the ball, both of the curve of the tangents require proper lining. While you can lane a straight stretch of the track by the ambulance, calculate correction with the detail of the line with the curve properly. Although the design construction for the curve track with the intent with the counterblend with the force applied with the train rounding curves, they can never compensate for from them entirely. Sooner or later, the continual passing of the train result with the track moving in the line with the disturbed for the rather become uncomfortable with the rail with the serve with the greater wear with the eventual with the curve becomes unsafe with the speed of the scheduled speeds. Constant watchfulness with the maintenance man without with the can be prevented with the happening with the curve with the check with the frequently with one become with the disordered line properly to avoid further damage. Point of the curve is PC. Note that the curve is unspiraled. They usually use 62-foot different points. Station 62-foot point curves. The equipment you do not need the string line actual practice with the field with the makeup of the office of the station measure the ordinance you need to have the tape at least 31 feet long graduated in the feet with any such tape that provide with the same tape that you would measure along the station of the curve. You also need a strong string line 62-foot long the marked with a 62-foot point with a rule graduated an inch of the eighth of the inch of the required with the measuring ordinance. One greater graduate inch of the tenth of the will do with a similar rule with the U.S. in all aligning with a particular curve. However, within this discussion, all ordinance expressed within each eighth of an inch. Also need a notebook and a pencil and a heavy crayon with a pair of wooden blocks and 1 by 2 inches known as offset blocks are helpful to mark the distance. The first step of the string line is divided with the entire curve with the 31-foot length with the zone with the marking off the stations. You start with the same with the point with the tangent marking it off with a heavy crayon with the web of the outside with the rail with the shown in the sketch, then also measuring 31-foot toward with the curve with the tape with the mark with the point with the same way each with the point with the marker shown in as the station as the number that consecutively for the first of the point end of the curve is shown in the sketch. Let's assume that you marked with the station for the first time. You sketch for the tape with the first number of the station 0 and the station 0 with the station number 1. Mark with the number of the web of the station. Mark with the enter with the column and the left margin with your notebook number 31 feet with the beyond station 1 with the mark of the record station 2. Continue this all the way around the curve until you are out of the other tangent. Then practice into the good idea with the start and up the down with the tangent. With you have 0 to 10, 15 station with the tangent 2 to have 10 or 15 more beyond with the curve. With the other tangent will be y because of the straight with the track approach with the curve likely is to be distributed by the passage of the train around the curve that is aligning to be checked. Head of the rail and string lining. After the curve is divided into stations, you begin with the measure of the order to take with the string and the stretch of the from station 0 to station 2 with the holding it out with the inside with the head of the rule, the midpoint with the string with the opposite of the station 1, the measure of the ruler between head of the rail and head on the string with the station 1 edge of the distance with the eighth of the inch with your notebook beside with the station with the number. If there is no distance, is writing down the number 1 next. Writing down 0 next to the stretch is string between station 1 and station 3 between station 2 with the midpoint with the string with the record result with the continue with the measure for each of the station and around the curve until the far end of the string is at the last station. You'll have laid off and recorded the results at each station. When you are on the curve itself, you will get some of the results at each of the stations. Say, for instance, for the station 19, you measure 1.5 inches between the string line string of the rail and the head of the rail since 1.5 inches is 12/8 of an inch. You were entered plus 12 inches. You are no book inches of the eighth of the shall be converted to the eighth of an inch recorded in the way the sketch illustrates. If you find the string of the midpoint with the press with against the rail, especially on the ear on or near the tangent, that is shown with either the rail absolutely straight with it that has curved within the word point with the offset with the blocks are you within shown with the sketch. Use the block at each end of the string. Place it between the string and the head of the rail with the scissors. Keep each of the end of the string exactly 1 inch for the rail within measure of the midpoint with the string within measure of the 1 inch for the track absolute straight end. You enter in 0 in your alright 1 inch offset block with the string and 1 inch to the other 1 inch offset block head of the rail. Notebook. Before you measure for the 1/2 inch means for the real curve, the inward with the midpoint with the string of the line is 1 inch minus for the 1/2 inch for the 1/2 inch with the 4/8 of an inch near the rail with the ends for the string. There would be enter with the -4 with the notebook and indicate the reverse band with the 1/2 inch with the measure for the record of the ordinate each of the station you have to furnish. The first phase of the field work, note that you must take your notebook home in the office and calculate home how much you need to move the track each station to achieve the smooth curve of the columns 1 and 2 figure of the 3-5 show the station number the measured ordinance of the short curve. Annex A, the curve of the calculated with the figure 3-5 of the diagram. The Annex A with the sheet 1 with the 7 with the sheet with the already explained explanation with the solid represent with the track itself. All of the broken lines are 52 feet on the string stretched from the station. The curvature of the diagram is greatly increased so that you can easily see and compare the ordinance of each of the stations. So the distortion of the curve is obvious. The actual curve is gentle and largest measure of the ordinate with the 9/8 with however the figure 210 locomotive that 60 miles an hour would slam and then such a stretch for that with a great deal of the force. Each of the such major deviation of high-speed track would cover the uncomfortable ride with a high maintenance cost. Therefore, the curve should be relined. B, the analysis. You can see the diagram where the curve should make a continuous turn with the right. However, the station number 1 there should be slightly end to the left of the column of the 2 with the figure 3-5 where you see the negative ordinate listed for the further station, while others are positive. The negative ordinance always indicates on such a wrong or reverse bend. When it's not designed with the curve with it's called with the dog leg at station number 8, the diagram shows an over the dog leg with the columns 2 with the measure of the ordinance decrease in station 5 with the station 7 with the increase of the station 8, then continue to decrease. Then these faults corrected. This will be fairly smooth curve with the string line calculating showing how to correct them. C. Selecting new ordinance. Next, you must select an ordinance for each of the station of the new curve. So instead, the ordinance for the smaller near each of the tangents should be spiral curved. This means the new ordinance should increase with the regular amount, but the maximum remain constant. But the several station with the circular part with the curve with the decrease with the 0, the same with the rate with the increase. One thing with limits with this point with the sum of the proposed ordinance must always equal the sum of the measured ordinance. Note the column 2 and 3 of the figure 3 and 5 each of the total 36 with the principal give the chance of the check for the work. If there are no equal to the proposed the ordinance to be revised. Looking at the measured ordinance, you can see that there are 10 stations with the curve of the station from 0 through 9 on the tangent, and they have no ordinance. While stations 1 through 8 are end of the tangents will have the very small ordinance, so that the curve and spiral ordinance in station 2 and 7 will be less than the circular part of the curve. Therefore, the most curvature will be as station 3 through 6 when the curve is circular. You may have the track chart similar to the ones in Annex C, which show the curvature when they should be similar and should do the simple change of the degrees. An inch of the 1 degree equals 1 inch of the converting the inch of the 8 of the inch of the result of each of the station. If you do not usually take the average ordinate with the circular part of the curve, the higher the stations 3 through 6 of the ordinance 7, 7, 7, 9, and 6 they have a total of 29. The average of the more than 7, but they usually ordinate 7 each of the 4 stations. They have a total of 28. While the sum of the proposed ordinance can be only 36. These leave only 8 and 4 for each of the 2 spirals located on each end of this curve, and so the perhaps 7 is too large. The try 6 each of the ordinance on the curve. Then the total is 24, and the spirals have 6 each. And since there are 2 stations each for the spiral, the values have 2 and 4 provided with the regular increase of the curve. The full curvature is 6. Therefore, the columns 3 of the figure 3, 5. The answer the figures 2, 4, 6, 6, 6, 6, 4, 2. Sometimes the longer curves is necessary to try with the differential spirals before you get at one that fits in. But here it was easy. Alright, D. Calculating errors. Before the ordinate with the larger but the measured ordinate, so the errors enter with the minus plus for the station 7 with the measured ordinate with the larger 2 with the errors plus for the station 5 with the measured ordinate and the minus for the error, the sum of the measured with the proposed ordinate and the minus as in station 1. Calculate the error. Each of the station enter with the column with the 4 with the sum of the enter with the column must be 0. You must figure out the sum of the errors upon the including each of the station answer from the column 5 of the each station 0 with no error with no previous error with some of the errors with 0 at station 1 with the error with is -3, but there's no previous error with a zigzag error show with a z and as a -3 would result in the -3. At station 2 previous errors add up the -2 to -3. The error would be 1 plus -3 plus 1 equals -2. The calculation is made each station over the end of the curve. This total column must be also 0. This leads you to where you can find the figure half of the necessary throw. For each station, you add the sum of the error of the previous station with the column 5 with the half of the throw of the column 6. The error between those columns indicate the station 0, the no previous error, the no previous half of the row, so the half of the row is 0. The same thing is true with the station 1. Station 1 is this, there is an error. This will affect station 2. Find a half throw to station 2 that adds the sum of the errors to station 1 and some of the errors, throw at station 2 and add the sum of the errors at station 1 to the half throw. There is -3 equal plus 0 equals -3. The figure is entered in the station 3 figures of the station 2 added to -2 and equal to -3 equals -5, which is the half thrown for each of the station. This process repeated each of the station and of the curve. Note that the figures column needed but not ended up with, however, the last entry of the column for the half throw. At least the station must be 0. If not, it must be adjusted to the method discussed in paragraph 324. The half throw at each of the station is double the entry of the columns of 7 of the follow throw of the amount of the track. It must be the 80th of the movement thrown each of the station expressed in the 1/8 of an inch of the throw with the negative of the minus of the track must be moved in that the toward with the low from the inside of the rail. The throw of the positive of the plus of the track must be moved out and so that is toward the high and outside of the rail with what flowed through the all station would have been calculated with the paper, the work, and the string line with the complete with remember that it must be never to all been any with the throw at least at the station sheet 2 with the annex A with its overlay showing with the same with the curve of the throws calculated in figure 3.5 half of the bend and placed over the sheet 1 of the annex A with the throw of the station 0 through 9 coincide with the two sheets. You can see that their throwing result with a smooth curve that is intended. Sometimes the curve includes a point with which the track cannot be moved such that the bridge will turn out restricted clearances such that the point with the throws must be 0. You must be adjust the curve made by the method given in paragraph 324 so that they are 0. At other times, series of throws may be very large, and they can be reduced by the same method. Assume that they have 6 half throws that come out at the 24 plus, to 31 plus, 37 plus, 34 plus, 29 plus, 26 plus. All you have to do is reduce the half throw to 25, choosing the pair with the station with the 12 numbers apart, with although they become proportional smaller. However, they would adjust throws over the curve. Always remember to recalculate the adjustment onto the end of the curve to make sure that the last throw is 0. Extremely long throws might even make it necessary to widen the battle section. It's difficult to set the limit over the side of the throw since it's not many different things may affect that. With the use of the half throw should not be more than 24/8 or 3 inches. If the full throw would be then 6 inches. If the throw exceeds the limit that's set by the policy, the curve should be adjusted. This can be done with the method discussed in section 4 with adopting the new sets of the ordinance and spirals. Usual throws are at a minimum when the total pole S of the throws are approximately equal to 2 minus throws and either plus no minus throws or bunch or one stretch track. Marking the track may be marked with the throwing of the 1 or 2 waves. The one is used with the marking with double the track. The second is either single the double. The double track of the scratch board is used with the mark of the 2 parallel tracks. The throwing is shown in figure 3.7. The scratch board notches numbered, track being lined, adjacent track, arc of the scribe line onto the arc of the scribe line. Text must be set plus or negative from the according to the calculated over through the scratch board. Arc scratched on tie number of the notches used with the mark on the web of the rail. 31-foot sections, stations. Track being lined, adjacent track. Board is placed on the one of the track with the rail is fitted with one of the number of the notches, one end of the scratch board, the point on the other end of the board, the U with the scratch the mark on the nearest tie of the other track of the supervisor of the track, the ribbon of the tie on either side of the outside of the track, marked depending on the where the throw is minus or plus. If the foul full overthrown anyway through it from it, the board is then marked with the next station when the maintenance of the gang comes along with it to place the board on the same rail, same spot, same number of the notch, and move the track either in or minus the throw out of the plus throw until the point of the board is above the track. The station is then considered like lined properly. Throwing. The track may be thrown or moved manually with the men using lining bars, such as the one with the shown figure 1/7 made by the machine, such as the track liner pictured in figure 122 by either the method of the track of the proper distance from the track tacks on the line stakes on the tie of the track gang, equipped with the lining of the bars for the throw of the track, the part of the which for the work on each of the rail, the move of the entire track, and the unit of each of the station. Figure 3-9 shows how men in the bars are positioned with the make of the throw easier. The bar ballast may be removed from the around the tie of the track liner. Does the same work as a track game equipped with lining bars. Only the operators need where there are two to 8 men with bars would require on each rail. Chapter 4: Grade crossing and guardrail seasonal maintenance. All right, we'll finish up. Chapter 4: Grade crossing, crossing guards and seasonal maintenance. Highway safety. The railroad right-of-way engineers have long recognized long as the grade crossing existing motors are going to be killed in addition to the crossing have always been, but the sort of the numerous other forms of the aggravation of the expense. This includes whistle warnings, often in conflict with the anti-noise ordinance, reduce the train speed with the heavy maintenance cost, with the interest with the good mark of the relation with the often direction of the legislative body. The railroads eliminated the many good grade crossing construction overpass of the underpass, but nevertheless some of the still remain. Likewise, the many difficulties associated with their maintenance of the three-door operation is not practical to eliminate such crossings. In fact, may be frequently be necessary to construct new ones. This section discovered the construction of highway crossing, their maintenance, the difficulties encountered in it. Good draining is especially important. The proper maintenance of the highway grade crossing, the culvert substitute with the main side ditch with the highway approach that must be kept with the clean and free of the flowing cross lateral drains may be necessary. Water flowing with the highway should be diverted before the breach of the railroad bed. Whole of the roadway surface of the crossing must be filled with the gravel, the patching of the compound of the broken plank to be renewed when the highway perp material between the rail needs to be replaced. It was wise to put in the new ties at the same time so that the cross needed to be torn out with the tie renewals alone. When it's important the highway grade crossing is repaired, with the work should be done with only one half of the road at a time, leaving the other half on the highway traffic. The planned ways must be kept clear of the dirt and storm, and ice and snow and other foreign material to avoid derailment hazards. Frequent inspection should be made to ensure that the road material has not been forced up by mud, stones, or other debris at point of the clearance between the road and railway car underframes is too small. The big difficulty maintaining a highway crossing of the roadway covered the track structure over the top of the rails. Consequently, the road materials must be moved before the surface engaging lining of the tie and the rail replacement work can be done. Another problem is increase the damage of the derailment because of the flangeway left between the gate side of the rails and road material often fill and thereby forcing the wheels off the track. The highway grade crossing of the construction of the roadway material should be easily removable, simple track maintenance with no rail joints occur with the crossing, and if it's located with a straight track, the frequency and the difficulty of the maintenance of the operation are reduced. The greater danger and maintenance expense for the highway grade crossing, the cause of many of them with eliminated overpass with underpass is substitute. However, they are not practical in theater operation. Instead, it may be necessary to construct a new highway grade crossing. Their maintenance for the crossing is the difficulty may be because of the road materials used that enable the automobile to cross the right of way must be removed before the repair of the work can be done. The amount of the maintenance and the danger for the associated with the highway crossings can be decreased, and the provisions are made to drain water flowing with the highway away from the road bed, and the highway crossing can be located in the straight track rather than on curves. And that was the end of the slideshow. There might be a little bit more, but we're going to take the tape for Railway Track Maintenance 2, Aipd.